We're ready to break down the non-conference slate, games 5 through 1 in our top 10 list. Plus, we've got a couple more breakout players to get you ready for the preseason here in 2024 on the 3 Technique.
One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
4-man Alabama rush. Got him. No, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Welcome back to the Content Bonanza here on the 3 Technique, college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Trey Reeves, Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. We're back to 2 episodes a week all the way through the regular season. And in fact, as we head into preview season, there'll be 3 episodes a week dropping. We're excited for the previews coming up. But right now, finishing out our top 10 non-conference list, we did 10 through 6 on the first episode this week back on Tuesday. If you haven't listened to that, we'd encourage you go back and check that out to get the rest of that list. If you are brand new to the podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe. Jimmy's and Joe's are jumping on board left, right, and center. You can follow us at 3TechPod on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your college football content. We are there. And of course, today's episode, all of our episodes, brought to you by our friends at homefieldapparel.com, the good brand, cooking up all kinds of heat as we get you ready for college baseball. Postseason's going on right now, and the football season is right around the corner. Code 3TechPod gets you 15% off your entire order. Or if you're a return customer, use the link in our bio. It'll get you the same discount. Gentlemen, we did 10 through 6 on the last episode. We've got the top 5 non-conference games for this episode. And Trey, as you look at the top 5, is there anything that kind of defines these 5 games to you?
Big names, banger after banger, man. Like these are the cream of the crop. They're the top 5 for a reason. And it's national brands challenging themselves out of conference. We did break one rule that I'll mention when we get to that game that we've had the last couple of years, but it's worth it, I promise, because it is a game that will have massive college football implications late in the season, which is not always typical of these non-conference games.
No, yeah, I had to double check that I had my date correct, and we'll get there in just a moment. Garrett, let's lead off here with our top 5. LSU at USC. This is September the 1st, and this is an interesting game because reportedly USC's tried to get out of this for the last 2 years, not just last year, the last 2 seasons. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but hey, it's Lincoln Riley, so we're going to run with it. LSU certainly feels like they're the much better team coming into this game, and even though USC doesn't have to travel very far, it's in Las Vegas, this already seems to have that flavor to it that we saw from Alabama a couple years ago when the Tide kicked their tails in Arlington.
Yeah, this one, look, I'm going to throw a little bit of a bone to our Oklahoma fans who have been scorned by recent episodes, man. Lincoln Riley looks weak on this one. He looks real scared about this. And look, like if you're trying to get out of it, for like real reasons or like, oh, we want to play a different game that's more meaningful or like we're trying to make the schedule work for that. It doesn't seem like that's even the case. It just looks like they're scared and just trying to find a way to duck LSU because, I mean, look, LSU has been pretty dang good so far in the Brian Kelly era. So, I mean, look, if you're going to try to make the case for both of these teams right now, you can say that either of them have lost their quarterback from last year, right? Both of them lost very, very talented quarterbacks. Both of them went at the very beginning of the first round. And so, like, it's kind of the fun little, like, under storyline is like, hey, the 2 best quarterbacks in college football last year are gone. And now who's replacing them? So that could be kind of a fun storyline. And look, LSU has lost a bunch of pieces, but yeah, USC has as well. They've both lost a bunch of pieces. USC, it seems like USC was real hot for a second, And now that Caleb Williams is gone, it's like, well, they're kind of here, I guess. And they're sort of a team that still plays football, sort of. And we're not really thinking about them as a main contender or like a big name team to really compete in year one. When, look, a couple of years ago, we looked at USC entering the Big Ten as this big thing, right? We're like, wow, USC, they're going to go in, they're going to bust it up with Michigan and Ohio State. And now we're talking more about like Oregon, and maybe can Washington hold some of that magic still. And we're not really talking about USC the same way. So this could be a big spot for USC to try to prove, hey, we're still there in a game, again, beginning of the season that, they need real bad. And LSU has not come out the gates well the last couple of years.
True.
They've had their big game, and, for one reason or another, or an extra point, or just getting their tails kicked, have not started the season well against big name opponents. So are the lights too bright? Can Brian Kelly have his guys ready to go? New quarterback, new receivers. I don't know. Like this could be a spot for LSU. Although, yes, this does really feel like if you look at the X's and O's and you break it down, LSU should stomp all over the Trojans on their way to a very good start to the season.
But we said that same thing about the LSU Tigers when they were playing Florida State week 1 2 years ago. And Florida State came in with a plan, a great game plan, and ran it to perfection with Jordan Travis kind of having a coming out party. So Miller Moss versus Garrett Nussmeier is going to be fascinating, guys.
Yep.
I'm really excited to see which one of those two young quarterbacks breaks out on the national stage. It's a standalone game on Sunday night of opening week. Personally, I think the crowd's probably going to be like 80-20 LSU fans. I think
For sure.
the Cajuns have been pumped to go to Vegas for quite some time, I'm sure. But man, it's so many interesting storylines in this one because I personally think this will be how USC plays in this game will define their season. LSU will not be the toughest team on their schedule. And if they get trounced week 1, which mentally I feel like they already have, if these reports are true that they've been trying to duck this game, it's not going to bode well. And you could see them absolutely spiral. We might be talking about Lincoln Riley's future job prospects at the end of the year, all because of a spiral that started in this week 1 game. That's getting way ahead of ourselves, but that narrative is going to be really strong if they don't show up to Vegas ready to go.
What if Lincoln Riley teams failed to do time in and time out when they need to compete? They don't play well in the trenches.
I was going to say defense.
They don't play well in the trenches, and Alex Grinch has been, the epicenter.
He's been excommunicated. We're fine, yeah.
They got rid of him, so hopefully the Trojans defense has a chance at competing this year. But I look at the lines, both on the offensive and the defensive side, and again, I'm just not impressed. LSU lost all 3 of their starting and main defensive tackles to the NFL draft. I still am not all that concerned that they will have any issue getting to Miller Moss, right? I mean, the SEC and the top teams in the SEC reload in the trenches. They're taking 4 or 5 guys on both lines every single time. And what's further, they're developing them. And USC just, I haven't seen them be able to stop any defensive line worth his salt, right? When Josh Henson went out west to the Trojans, we thought that was maybe the X factor. That was going to be a huge piece in the evolution of USC's offense. Well, again, it wasn't the whole problem. The defense stunk. But even then, I think you're still patching together a team. Trey, we'll get to this probably later on in preview season when we actually flush out the Trojans. You've been putting together a little statistical model based off of a bunch of different algorithms and sources, and you're what we're calling the SP plus plus hates the Trojans this season. So I, would not be shocked to see them lose this game and then lose a few more after that.
I do want to say real quick before we leave this game, we might need to find a way to man on the street this one because LSU and USC are both a couple of schools that can get down and party and throw some absolute ragers. You put both of those teams in Vegas. I kind of just want to be there to see it. I just see kind of like what happens and like just see how many drunk people can fall into the street or whatever. Like I don't know. It seems like a fun time, and we might need to find a way to get there, man on the street, some of that, and have some interviews with both sides. Maybe see if we can get like a Tiger and a Trojan and like get them to yell at each other, something like that. It could be great content.
I don't know that they'll really interact with each other that much in Vegas, though, because I feel like those two fan bases, yes, they both love to party, but they would probably do Vegas very differently. The Cajuns, the
They're
Cajuns
on
might be
different ends of
looking
the
You
for
might
spectrum.
that.
be right about that.
The Cajuns might be looking for that, deal that they got from the Golden Nugget over in Lake Charles to get the $30 room. No shade. That's a really fun
A
way to
great
do
spot, yeah.
Vegas.
The sister
I think
property.
the USC fan base might be looking more for the bungalow that you saw in the Hangover type thing. I don't know.
Yep, yep.
We'll see. Yeah, will be interesting to monitor social media ahead of that one. Number 4 on this list, gentlemen, the first appearance of Notre Dame to this list. It won't be the last. They go to College Station to start their season August 31st. Take on the Texas A&M Aggies. This game storylines wrote themselves. Mike Elko in his first game as the head coach of the Texas A&M Aggies had previously spent 3 seasons as their defensive coordinator when they put together their most complete teams under Jimbo Fisher. And he's going to be having to scheme up defensive masterpieces against his former quarterback and Riley Leonard, who's now calling plays and executing plays for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Riley Leonard took Duke to heights that were previously unprecedented, I feel like, since the absolute best of David Cutcliffe over there on campus. So you've got Elko looking for his first win in College Station. Notre Dame starts a very difficult schedule, but they're independent this year, guys. So they have to win as many games as possible to secure a playoff berth because they don't have a conference championship to go win and secure that. It really feels like the road to the playoff for Notre Dame starts in College Station. How do we feel about this game coming in at number 4 on our list?
Well, it certainly has more hype than almost any other game on the list. So they're getting College Game Day in College Station for the first time in quite some time. They will, obviously with a new coach, there's a lot of energy in College Station right now. But yeah, you said it, Mitch. The storylines just write themselves. And what I'm really interested to see, I think right off the bat, we're going to see, did Mike Elko make a good decision in not pursuing Riley Leonard in the transfer portal? Because to me, if he wanted Riley Leonard at Texas A&M, when he entered the transfer portal, he probably could have got him, right? Like that's the obvious destination if Elko wants him. I don't know if he did or not. I don't have any inside information to that recruitment there, but to me, not really pursuing Riley Leonard is a endorsement of Connor Wegman, that you think that he is the better quarterback to help you win. We're going to see that week 1 in a new offense for Texas A&M. There's no cloud of Jimbo Fisher's, Cheesecake Factory playbook over that offense anymore. And I'm really interested to see how it all comes together. If it comes together quickly, it could be a huge, huge statement win for Mike Elko. And Marcus Freeman really needs this game, I think. He's gotten a lot of goodwill the first 2 years. Obviously, the really rough start with losing to, I can't remember which non-conference team they lost to, but it was a really bad loss the first year. And then, a decent year last year, but not playoff caliber, right? So this is a big opportunity for Marcus Freeman to kind of start rewriting the narrative and start writing his own story, kind of get out of Brian Kelly's shadow a little bit and take Notre Dame to heights on his own.
Marshall, by the way, the loss to
Marshall,
Marshall
that's it.
was
I remember it was the Sun Belt team because it was like
yeah,
Sun Belt dominance week. But yeah,
yeah. Marshall and App State, right? The
yep,
same
same
week.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Storylines galore. What do you know?
both of the teams right here. It's kind of the funny part with it. Now, I think when you first look at this, you should obviously pick Notre Dame, right? You say, oh, Notre Dame, they have the coach that's established. They've been pretty good the last couple of years, and they got a new quarterback, and that quarterback's actually pretty dynamic and can really run the football in addition to being able to pass it. But I think there's a couple of reasons why you got to maybe pump the brakes a little bit and think about A&M. Number one, yeah, Mike Elko is the former head coach. He's a defensive-minded head coach, and he knows what Riley Leonard likes to do and not do. He's seen him in practice, and he knows that, like, hey, if he doesn't like this type of play, or if he doesn't like it when you get in his face, or if he doesn't like it when you bring guys off the edge, he knows that, right? And so he can figure out what to scheme for Riley Leonard in that way. Now, is he playing in a different offense? Yes, obviously. But they do have that on tape, and I think that you give teams an entire offense or an entire offseason to look at this, they're going to figure out a way to do that. You don't really have anything on tape for A&M though, and that's kind of the big issue for Notre Dame is you're having to kind of cobble together. Okay, well, Elko was here a couple years at A&M, and so like let's go back a few years ago and see what was he doing on defense when he was here with the Aggies. But then you have to think about last year's A&M team, and then the pieces that are returning, and how did they play, and are they good? Then you have to look at the offense and say, well, let's figure out what Colin Klein was doing at Kansas State. How much of that was him? How much of that was the head coach? What's he bringing in new? Is there any sort of new ideas that he's bringing in? And you have to look at all of that as kind of a big thing. A&M can come out and surprise Notre Dame with some stuff. So I think in order to win this one, A&M's going to have to come out fast, and they're going to have to come out and jump out to a good, 10-0, 14-0 type of lead on their first couple possessions in order to win this game. If you let Notre Dame stick around, look at you for a couple minutes, it's not going to go well for A&M because they're going to settle in. They're going to have their experience at quarterback, and they're going to win this game. But you get them down. It's a hot night in College Station, right? Kyle Fields rocking. Who knows, what's going to be going on there, but they're going to show up for this game. If they get down and you give that crowd life, then it's probably not going to go very well for Notre Dame. So A&M, you got to start fast. Notre Dame, you just got to get through the first quarter.
Feels like a defensive battle in College Station for
Could
sure.
be.
I think this is going to be a low scoring affair. Whoever wins, I think the ripples echo throughout the rest of the sport and really put the rest of college football on notice. Okay, this team's legit for Texas A&M. I think it would mean that they're well ahead of schedule in
Yep.
game one under Mike Elko. For Notre Dame, I think it's, hey, this is a team that's coming for a top 5, top 6 seed as high as they can get without being in a conference.
And Notre
Uh,
Dame really has an SEC monkey that they're trying to get off their back as well. They do not have a good track
Yep.
record in recent history against the SEC. So that would be a big boost to combat that narrative as well.
Yeah. Let's talk Florida State at Notre Dame on November the 9th. This is the game that Trey alluded to earlier. It's a must win for both teams who will probably be eyeing a playoff berth. I mean, Florida State, they should be right there in the thick of it. We've already talked about Notre Dame and the fact that Notre Dame can't earn, an automatic bid. So the implications around this, at least where we're sitting on June the 3rd as we're recording this, this is a game that I think we'll all be pulling up in front of the TV for come the beginning of November.
Yeah, like you said it, Mitch, it's going to be a playoff implication if these two teams are on the trajectory that we think we are. And both of their schedules are kind of backloaded. I don't have Notre Dame's pulled up in front of me, but Florida State, for the most part, they play an early game at SMU that could be tricky. They play Clemson at home, but the back half of their schedule is at Miami, North Carolina, and then this Notre Dame game. So this is the tail end of a really pivotal stretch in their schedule. It would be a huge, huge boost to their playoff resume, especially if they're unable to get that ACC championship. It's going to be very interesting to see if the ACC gets 2 bids in or just 1 bid with the champion. If Florida State's able to knock off Notre Dame and Notre Dame is, a 1 or 2 loss team, including that loss to Florida State, that's a great feather in their cap in front of the committee. And I know Florida State fans probably don't want to hear that. They've been burned by the committee before, but I do think that would be quite the feather in their cap if they were able to pull that off.
This is the year that they're going to give Florida State the makeup call if it ever happens, right? Like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this year. So put a good resume together.
Borderline, if they're between Florida State and I don't know, like Kansas State or anybody like that, a 5th SEC team, you gotta hope that they make it up.
Or
Depends
Texas
if their
is
athletic
one of the
directors
SEC teams.
on the committee, right? I mean,
It does highly depend on that. Look, the other thing about this is both teams with transfer quarterbacks, but this is late in the season. So it's really just going to be, what do you have, right? Is it going to be Leonard? Is it going to be DJ? Like, who's going to be your guy at the end of the day? Like, it's going to come down to that. Whoever's, the guy who can bring his team across the finish line, both rosters are going to be plenty talented. Again, end of the season on the road. Maybe you don't love Florida State in that spot, but, again, these are 2 quarterbacks who've been around the block, have competed at high levels, have won big games. I don't think this is going to be a spot where you can really pick one obvious side or the other. It'll be a lot of how does the season play out, right? Does Notre Dame come into this with a little bit less, ambition because they've lost a couple up to this point? Or is it, hey, we're fighting for our playoff lives and we're, you know, really, really motivated to play this game versus, again, like Florida State, maybe they're coasting. Maybe they're, hey, the ACC hasn't been too tough for us and we're going to kind of coast into this one, not really ready for it. Or maybe there's a loss on the schedule somewhere and they're super desperate. So I think a lot of this is going to be how does the season play out for both teams, who's healthy, which guys have found their spots, which role players have found their spots. And it's just going to be a lot of kind of how does the season develop, but absolutely have to watch this game. It's going to be one of the best of the year.
Very excited to see who ends up coming out on top of that late season drama in the non-conference. Let's go to Texas at Michigan, September the 7th. This is the first real road test of the Longhorns face their first season in the SEC. They'll take on the reigning national champions. Guys, for me, Michigan really should have the majority of the storylines here. They're going to have to be proving that they aren't a shell of their national championship selves. We don't know who's going to be quarterback as of yet. Right now, I've started to hear some Jack Tuttle rumors. But no matter who takes the first snap and starts for the Michigan Wolverines, that's a team that lost a lot of really nice pieces, both to the draft and some guys to the portal as well. Texas is the better roster coming in, but will they be able to go to the big house and pull that win off?
The key matchup to me in this one is going to be Texas defensive line. How do they replace those NFL caliber defensive linemen? It's going to be a huge test to see if they can handle that Michigan front. That, I know Michigan lost a lot of people on the offensive line as well, but that culture in that offense at Michigan, it wants to bully a front seven that's not ready for it. Those Texas defensive linemen, I know they had a solid rotation even behind their starters last year, but they got to be ready. And if they want to win that game, they've got to be ready to commit to stop the run. That's going to decide this one to me. If Texas can muddy that up, Texas might win it going away. But if Michigan can get what they want on the ground, it could be a long day for the Longhorns.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where you have to look at this. Look, there's no question I've been on the Michigan bandwagon for a little bit here and enjoyed that whole run last year, but they're losing a bunch of pieces, and that can't be overstated. Having Donovan Edwards in your backfield is going to be a massive boost. He might be one of the best football players this year, period. Should be in the Heisman conversation all year. That guy's a home run hitter at the running back spot. So anytime he's on the field, anytime he touches the football, you have to think this ball could end up in the end zone. I don't care how far away you are. Ask Ohio State. Ask Washington, right? Figure out some of these teams that have watched him just rattle off big-time runs for scores. So that's going to be kind of your first place to look. Now, I understand that Texas bringing back the quarterback Quinn Ewers is a big deal. The one thing I want to kind of highlight here, Michigan's defense didn't lose a bunch. It lost some key players, it did, but it didn't lose a bunch. And up front at the D tackle spots, that's about as good as any unit anywhere in the country. Those D tackles are going to be really, really good for Michigan. I look, you got to look out for them. I think that they're going to dominate up front on both sides of the football. But hey, at the end of the day, like, who's the quarterback for Michigan? Is he going to be able to move the football? It's only going to be game 2 for both of these teams. So not a lot of time to really hit the ground running if you're Michigan's quarterback. And Quinn has to find a way to play his role players and figure out, hey, I don't have the same guys as I did last year. I don't have the same supporting cast as last year at all. I got to find a way to get those guys the football. And I got to find a way to move move the offense down the field against a very good Michigan defense. This one could be surprisingly low scoring for a lot of people. I don't think you could expect a lot of points in this one. This game might be won with 20 points. There's a real chance 20 points wins this game.
Should be a clash of styles. I don't know how quickly Texas will establish who their lead back is, but certainly throwing the football down the field. That's what Texas wants to do. Michigan's secondary, led by Will Johnson, should be very good as well. It's going to be an intriguing matchup early on. Finally, the ultimate game on our non-conference slate. Number 1, Georgia at Clemson. This is in Atlanta. August 31st, opening weekend. Guys, this is a celebration of life for college football. Georgia is looking to win another national championship. Clemson is looking to get back to real, true elite status, even despite spurning the transfer portal. I can't wait to see the storylines. You've got formerly one of the best coaches in the game going up against the best coach in the game. Georgia lost a bunch of talent to the transfer portal, but they still look ready and primed to chase a national championship. And I think that road could start in Atlanta.
It's going to be fascinating to see how fast Georgia replaces Brock Bowers, because I know that they kind of got a taste of that last year with him missing a lot of time due to injury, but that's a huge piece of their offense that they relied on a lot over the last couple of years that they're just not going to have anymore. I'm interested to see that. I think Carson Beck, for me, is the number one contender for the Heisman Trophy as we go into the preseason. I think he's going to show it against Clemson in week one. I love that we get this matchup. I wish that we were getting this matchup like 3 or 4 years ago, because I think it would be a better game with, some of the dudes that Clemson used to have. I mean, I don't think you can take a ton away from this game for Clemson, even if it is closer to what the Oregon game was in Atlanta a few years ago for Georgia. But it's going to be an interesting measuring stick. I feel like I've said that a lot for these non-conference games, and you kind of get mulligans now with a 12-team playoff. Clemson could lose this game by 30 points and still make the 12-team playoff and be a much different team in December if a rematch were to happen. But it's going to be an interesting measuring stick, and I think we're going to see, a couple of programs that are very proud and love the way that they do things, and it's going to be a conflicting style a little bit. I have Georgia maybe being close in the first half, but I really think the talent pulls away in the second half.
Yeah, well, and I think Georgia's biggest challenge is going to be motivation, right? Just kind of what you just said. They don't have to come out and win this game. Like, they should. Look, if you're just going to be analytical about this, Georgia's the better team. End of story. You can call me lazy, Clemson fans, but last I checked, you still haven't taken a transfer. So we'll see you when you want to be, competitive in the modern game. They should still be a good team. Clemson should still play well, but Georgia's the better football team. And also, Trey, kind of to your point, they're going to need to figure out a way to replace Ladd McConkey too, because even when Brock Bowers went down, they still had Ladd McConkey there to kind of be that presence. And he's out the door too. He's going to go be a pro as well. So, look, when I'm kind of breaking this one down, it should be Georgia, but they can lose this game and go win the SEC, and there's no question they're going to be in. They can, lose this game and lose another one later, and a 10-2 Georgia's still making the playoff, right? They're not leaving out a 10-2 Georgia. It's just not going to happen. And so, I think for me, I don't have a question that Kirby Smart's going to have these guys ready. It's just more of a question of, do they come out a little bit slow and let Clemson be super, super motivated, and, they kind of punch him in the mouth, draw some first blood, and then go, oh, wait, hold on a second. Wait, we got to go. We're not going to coast through a first quarter and then kind of start slow. We got to actually go now, right? That's the only situation where I see Georgia in any way, shape, or form losing this game. But I just can't make that case, right? Kirby Smart, best coach college football. He's going to do his thing. He's going to have his guys ready. And Georgia, I think, steamrolls this game.
The opening portion of Georgia's schedule is fascinating, guys. It's this game against Clemson, Tennessee Tech at home. Then they go to Lexington to play Kentucky and their former quarterback, Brock Vandagriff. Then they're off for a week and at Alabama before they return home for the Deep South's oldest rivalry against Auburn. That's a tough opening schedule, even for the most talented team in the country. They might slip up in one of those games, maybe two of those games, even if they're not ready to hit the ground running. So, and then right after that, they play Mississippi State, and then they're at Texas. So, not a lot of red. The SEC did not do them any favors with that schedule. They gave them a pretty difficult schedule, relative to who they're getting, especially at home versus on the road.
It's about time after they've had some cupcake schedules.
Yeah.
So,
I totally
have to go play a real schedule, not just the SEC East.
Yeah, we were due for an uptick in competition. All right, that's our top 5 non-conference games coming at you this fall. Let us know who we missed. Let us know which game you are looking forward to the most. We'd love to have that conversation with you on Instagram, on Twitter, and in the comments on YouTube at 3TechPod, where you can find us. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk breakout players and more right here on the 3 Technique. Final segment of the Thursday edition of the 3 Technique, and we've got 2 more breakout players for you, starting with Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback at LSU. Now, this is an interesting position that Nussmeier finds himself in, guys, because you're taking over for a Heisman quarterback, a guy that you sat behind in Jaden Daniels for 2 seasons, didn't test the portal either time, despite rumors that he would. But now it's finally his time. He's got a chance to take all that seasoning. I mean, he's just been on that low boil, right? Down there in Cajun country. And now he's got the chance to step into the limelight. He's got a big test in USC week 1 and then a real chance to take an LSU offense that, yes, is missing its big pass catchers from a season ago, but guys has a ton of talent stepping up behind the likes of Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. CJ Daniels transfers in from Liberty. He was a top pass catcher in the country last season. He's wearing purple and gold now. Mason Taylor at tight end. Kyron Lacey, who's quietly been a great number 3 wide receiver for LSU. He's a 5th-year senior, I believe, and ready to go. Nussmeier's going to have a great offensive line in front of him. Will Campbell might be the top tackle in the draft when it's all said and done, depending on how Kelvin Banks performs this year. But the pieces are set offensively. The questions for LSU, to me, are not on the offensive side, they're on the defensive side. And so while Nussmeier is certainly not the quarterback that Jaden Daniels was when he won his Heisman Trophy, I don't think he has to be that for LSU to be really good in 2024. He's certainly not the same player as far as mobility with his legs. He's athletic, but he's going to be your traditional pass from the pocket quarterback as opposed to Jaden Daniels, who as soon as he got the word go, he was running 80 yards down the field. So Nussmeier certainly has I think some learning and some growing to do as a starting quarterback. But guys, this offense is ready made for a quarterback of his caliber to step into. I think LSU is going to be fine offensively. It's really going to come down to, did their defense take any steps forward with Blake Baker coming in from Missouri? That's really what's curious to me, not the offense. I think LSU's offensive numbers are going to be just fine with Nussmeier at quarterback.
What a difference a decade makes, right? I remember when that was just flipped for the longest time, that we
Right.
knew LSU's defense was going to be good, but they could never find a quarterback. I think they've got a great one in Garrett Nussmeier. Obviously, the pedigree, the recruiting prowess that he had, and the hype that he had coming in as a recruit.
Yep.
And to, like you said, Mitch, not test the waters of the transfer portal. That is so rare in modern college football that you almost want to root for him just because of that he stuck it out, waited his turn, and now he's going to get his shot. I personally hope that it works out for him and that he gets rewarded for that. And I think that he's going to get, like you said, a really cool opportunity to have a big coming out party on national TV, Sunday standalone game. I don't see the USC defense stopping an LSU offense that even remotely close to what we saw on the field last year, unless they've made some drastic changes. So a really cool coming out party opportunity. And, obviously there's going to be a lot of new faces for LSU, but it does seem like it's going to be more of a changing of the guard situation than a tear it down and rebuild.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think what you said is right. He's not going to be Jaden Daniels, but he doesn't have to be. That might ultimately limit LSU's ceiling for what they can accomplish this season, but it's not going to limit him on the field. They're going to be just fine on the offensive side of the football. And, kind of to that point of the open, yes, he gets to open against the USC defense and under the bright lights and all that. But then it goes Nichols at South Carolina, UCLA, South Alabama, not exactly world beaters, not exactly these massive teams where you're really nervous. So you kind of let him get his feet underneath him, establish some chemistry. Yes, there's going to be some bright lights on those. Like everyone's going to be tuning in for a lot of these games, but it's not going to be, this awful challenge, at least to start the season. He does play Ole Miss the next game after that, so it will, kind of heat up quickly after that. But by that point in the season, you got the half the season under you. You should be feeling good about it. So I really like this pick. I think he's plenty talented. The one thing I'm curious about is, what does a pocket passer look like in that Brian Kelly LSU offense, right? We've seen it kind of in the past and what he's done, and sort of Notre Dame and all that. But I'm curious to see what a more pocket passer, a little bit less dynamic with the legs. Curious to see what that looks like.
I'm curious to see how the dynamic shifts, right? Jaden
Mhm.
Daniels is able to get them out of so many tight spots, right? And just
Yeah.
create magic out of thin air. This year, Nussmeier doesn't have that same explosiveness. Now, with that being said, the offensive line is very good. They did lose Lance Hurd to Tennessee, but like I said, I think LSU should be fine in the trenches. So they do have to go, I think, more traditional here. where it's straight up passing, straight up running game. They'll have a host of backs that compete for that job. But yeah, Nussmeier by himself in a vacuum, I think he's a very safe bet to really succeed this year. Now, Garrett, you have a breakout player on the other side of the ball here in defensive captain for the Aggies, Torian York.
Yeah, man, and look, it's easy to pick breakouts on the offensive side. I think this might be our first defensive breakout so far this year, and there's a big reason why, guys. Like Torian York at A&M, I think is going to cement himself this year as one of the best linebackers in college football. Right, last year, freshman All-American, basically not necessarily not recruited, but 3-star kid, not super highly touted. A lot of excitement at A&M about him, but everyone gets excited about their, underranked guys, right? Everyone's like, oh, the entire industry missed on him, and he's amazing, and he's the best, and everybody else's 3 stars suck, and ours are amazing, and that's it, right? The Aggies are right with Torian York, though, because this kid performed year one as a freshman, and really this is not so much just what he's done on the field. He had 74 tackles, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, good first season as a freshman. It's the opportunity, right? Edgerrin Cooper leaving for the NFL. He's kind of your main linebacker there at A&M, and there's not a lot else at the linebacker position at A&M right now. So it's going to be Torian York playing linebacker, or it's going to be nobody playing linebacker at Texas A&M. That's kind of the options that you have right now. He's going to be linebacker 1, massive gap. He'll be the captain on that defensive side. He'll be running the show, right? He'll be the mic. He'll kind of step in to, kind of run the entire show there. He flashed good talent. He flashed good instincts. He gets downhill in a hurry. Very, very talented player. And the biggest thing I think that's going to help him is that his new head coach, Mike Elko, defensive guy, right? Defensive-minded head coach who can come in here. He's really sound on the X's and O's, and he can kind of help show you, how to use your leverage, how to get your angles, how to pass rush a little bit, and turn him into a great player. They go, buzzer to buzzer here. He's going to start off with Notre Dame. That's going to be a tough test, kind of, riling down Riley Leonard, seeing if he can keep him contained. And they finished the year with Texas, right? I think Quinn Ewers versus Torian York on that, spot, like getting to kind of see how does he move the offense, how does he move the defense, what pieces happen, what are the pre-snap stuff looking like. It's going to be a fun battle to watch at the end of the year in College Station with what he can do. But I think regardless of A&M's success, I'm not here to tell you A&M's making the playoffs or winning the national championship, none of that stuff. But what I will tell you is, regardless of that, by the end of the season, Torian York will be a name that everybody knows across college football as one of the best, if not the best, linebacker in the country.
And I think he would have been that last year if he wasn't overshadowed by Edgerrin Cooper, right? Like Edgerrin Cooper kind of stole the headlines, but he was very, very good as a freshman. And I love his story. Like you mentioned, Garrett, I think A&M came in and took him from, was it Baylor at the last minute?
It was
a last second commitment and a position they really needed to fill. And he stepped right in and took care of business. So I'm excited to see him develop in year 2, get another year in the weight room, look even bigger and stronger out on the field. And from all accounts in the media covering that team, he's already stepping up to be a leader, and he is, earning the captain role every single day in that locker room. So you love to see that if you're an A&M fan. And it looks like they've got 2 more years of a really exciting linebacker prospect.
Torian's going to be a guy who I think has, a jersey or a plaque for sure on campus at College Station. Special kid, heart, hustle. He's got it all. Fun player for the maroon and white. Those are our 2 breakout candidates for this episode. We've got more coming down the pipe, so let us know who you think we should feature and spotlight next. At 3Tech Pod is where you can find us on our social media. Subscribe to YouTube and the podcast wherever you get your college football content. And until next time, so long, everybody.
Gracious him. How about